So I'm a chiropractor here at the Wellness Way as well. Additionally, I'm the massage therapist here at the clinic. I also have a black belt in karate, so if any of you start mouthing off, you're going to have to answer to me. I am married with one daughter, and here she is, our little fuzzy daughter. My wife says she has my ears. I don't know if I agree with her, but. And her name is Sakura, and she actually has a couple allergies of her own. She is in fact allergic to chicken and grains, which we had to learn through trial and error. She got really itchy when we fed her food that had some of that stuff in it. But now she's doing a lot better. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about allergies themselves. So where do these allergies come from? So a lot of us are allergic to many things. We know some allergies we have. My wife, for example, has some of the most random allergies I've ever heard of. She is allergic to limes, raspberries, and shiitake mushrooms. Lemons are fine. All of the fruits are fine. A lime could kill her. Raspberries are not good for her, and shiitake mushrooms specifically, all of the mushrooms are fine. So peanuts are a very common allergy, as are mold, bee stings. We all know somebody who needs to carry an EpiPen with them because if they get stung by a bee, they could die. So why? Why is that? So I'm going to start off today by talking a little bit more about what an allergy is and where they actually come from. So let's start off. We're going to go to PubMed. So PubMed is generally considered one of the more reliable sources for medical knowledge, medical information. And it says right here that an allergy is an exaggerated immune response. So that's very key. Dr. Amanda alluded to this earlier, that it's actually your immune system taking over and reacting to something that's generally supposed to be not harmful. So a peanut's not supposed to be something that our body recognizes as harmful, but in some people, a peanut could kill them. Generally speaking, our immune system's supposed to react to viruses, bacteria, certain types of mold and fungus. But in some people, a bee sting, mold, a peanut, shellfish, all these things can be deadly to certain people. And allergies can cause all kinds of different symptoms. So they can cause breathing problems, coughing, diarrhea, headaches. And generally speaking, right now we're generally referring to the big immediate anaphylactic responses where you eat that peanut, your lips are going to swell up, your throat closes off, you can't breathe, you have a lot of trouble with these things. So right here, this is Immunology 101. So here, this is talking about the different types of immune reactions that can happen in the body. So I want you to keep in mind, the big thing to pull from this slide is that there's 5 different antibodies that can react in the body, and that's it. There's just 5 of them. A few of these, they can all react to things, but only a few of them are generally tested for. So as Dr. Amanda said in the beginning, we're here to have fun. We're not here to have an immunology lecture. And I don't know what's more fun than smiley face commandos. So here we go. So we're going to start off with the enemy. So that's going to be a virus, a bacteria, a toxin. And those double lines, that's going to be the skin. It's actually entering the body. So here we have Mr. Macrophage. He's going to hunt down that enemy toxin, and he's going to grab him and hold on to him. He's going to put him in a sleeper hold until this Mr. Helper T cell can come in. And he's going to call in the infantry. So they're going to come in, they're going to cut down that toxin, and they're going to kill it. So now it's no longer in our body, and we're fine. Okay, but now, what if it comes back? So if that enemy comes back, we have our surveillance crew out here. They're looking for that toxin to come back, and they're ready for it. But we don't want to have this major immune response going on all the time because we come in contact with hundreds of things every day, thousands of things every day. So that's where these guys come in, and they're going to actually help suppress that immune response until the surveillance crew comes and sees something that they want to react to. Then that's going to start the whole process over again. So now here's how allergy tests work. When we test for the big immediate anaphylactic responses, this is generally what an allergist would do. they do what's called the skin prick test. And they literally go on your back and they prick the skin with something that is a known allergen. And they just look at how it reacts. If it turns bright red, you react positively to it. If it doesn't react at all, then you're negative to it and you're not allergic to it. But that's not the only type of allergies that are out there. So far we've been talking about the big immediate responses, the anaphylactic type response. But there's also a delayed response that occurs. And these can be a little more troublesome because the response is delayed, like I said, so you don't necessarily know that you're having a reaction. So here, this is going to be IgG mediated. So if you remember that slide back, we have the 5 different immunoglobulins. That's what the first Ig stands for. And the G, specifically of it, it's the most abundant antibody in our entire system. About 75% of our immune system is going to be that IgG antibody. And when it reacts, you have no immediate symptoms. So you eat that peanut, and you're like, oh, I'm not allergic to peanuts. I have no allergies. I do great. I have not experienced an anaphylactic response to anything I've eaten. But there's no immediate symptoms. So in some cases, you're not going to have any reaction in the body whatsoever for a couple hours, sometimes a couple days. Guess what, guys? Sometimes not for a couple weeks later. In fact, reactions sometimes don't even occur till 30 days following contact. That's a whole month. So are you going to link like a runny nose to something you ate 30 days ago? There's going to be a lot of allergies that you can possibly have that you don't know about. And that's where the problem comes. And what this does, it primes the immune system to start fighting off a foreign invader. So what it's going to do is it's going to create inflammation in the body. And if it's something that you're eating every single day because you don't necessarily know that you have a reaction to it, it's really going to start to cause a problem down the road. So here's a nice flow chart that kind of gives a better description of what's going on. So we're going to have an immune response, which is an allergy. Okay, so generally speaking, the only thing that's tested for is that acute response, that immediate IgE response, which leads to chemical inflammation, which ultimately leads to tissue damage and can lead to some sort of disease. But what about the delayed hypersensitivity? There's all these other factors that can lead to allergies as well, and they too will lead to chemical inflammation, as well as tissue damage, as well as disease. So just because you don't have that big immediate anaphylactic response does not mean you don't have an allergy. Actually, let me back up a second. So mothers all right, so I wanted to avoid the immunology lecture, but here we go. Mothers, this is very important for all of you. So in the IgE response, this is generally where most of the allergies are looked for. But let's look at this IgG. Let's actually read what this says. It's found in all body fluids, all of them. Okay? They're the smallest but most common antibodies, about 75 to 80%. So this is important now. Let's skip to the last sentence. IgG antibodies are the only type of antibody that can cross the placenta in a pregnant woman and help protect the baby. This is key. So if babies are born with lots of allergies, guys, you're off the hook. Blame mom. Because you actually share your immune system. That baby is born without their own immune system being developed yet. They have their mom's immune system now. And for about 6 months after they're born, they'll really start getting their own immune system developed. But until then, it's all on mom. Okay. So now we have an allergy. Where did this allergy come from? So possibly we can blame mom, but I'm not going to stand up here and blame women for everything. Sometimes foods that you eat can cause the allergy. Not always, but if it's a food that you're eating every single day, your body starts to react to it after a while. If you have an overstimulated immune system, then it'll actually start to trigger based on something you're eating every day. So the biggest thing to take from this slide, guys, is you want to rotate your food. Do not eat the same thing on a daily basis. If you make your own homemade almond milk, don't drink that every day. Don't eat, if you have, let's say you guys go home and have chicken for dinner tonight when we're done here. Please, if you have leftovers, don't finish it off tomorrow. Just wait a day. It's not going to go bad in one day. You can wait one day before you have those leftovers. And then you should have leftovers from the previous day, so you should be okay. Things should all work out for you. And of course, sometimes toxins, foods can act as toxins in other ways. So let's throw out a few definitions real quick. I'm going to use the example of gluten for my examples here, because being gluten-free has kind of become a fad. A lot of people are going gluten-free. They don't know why. They just know it's a thing you're supposed to do. So gluten is something that people are talking about right now, and people will say, oh, I'm just sensitive to gluten. I don't have an allergy, I have a sensitivity. Or I have a gluten intolerance. Or I legitimately have a gluten allergy. But very seldomly do they really know what the difference is when they say these different things. So we're going to address that right now. A sensitivity is the most minor type of response you can have. It means that your body doesn't tolerate it very well, you don't digest it fully, but it's not doing any damage. It's not really causing a trigger in the body. Just for some reason, your body doesn't digest it and doesn't handle it very well. Okay, now let's look at intolerance. And intolerance is actually when you start to see tissue damage occur. So if you're gluten intolerant, you start to eat the gluten, and it's going to actually trigger something within the body, and within the gut, you have these little fingers sticking up in here that grab all the food and help digest it. If you have a gluten intolerance, those will start to get destroyed, and you won't be able to digest any food because those will start to get destroyed because of the gluten you're eating. Now, the most severe response is going to be an allergy. An allergy is when you're genuinely triggering the immune system as soon as you eat it. It hits the GI, it hits the bloodstream, and now the immune system has reacted. You're going to get you're going to start getting symptoms. You're going to start sneezing, itching. It could be an IgE response, which you all know means an immediate anaphylactic response, or it could be an IgG response. It depends on which antibody is triggering. So that could be you're eating it, you think you're fine, but it's still causing internal damage that you don't necessarily know about. So let's talk a little bit about leaky gut syndrome. It's probably something that most of you have heard of, but generally speaking, it's not very well understood. So until today, it's going to be very well understood after today. So something is going to trigger the response. So be it some kind of proteins in the food you're eating, be it antibiotics, drugs you're taking, actual food allergies, various toxins, or stress. Menopause, pregnancy, lots of things can trigger these issues in the gut. And then, so you see these are the little finger projections I was talking about, and each of these cells, they're connected by something called a tight junction. So we're going back to high school biology class here. I see some grimacing out there. So we have the tight junctions that are holding those cells together, which is very important because we don't want things getting in between there. It needs to get digested and broken down first. If something gets in between those cells, it gets into the bloodstream early before it's ready to be absorbed. But guess what? Leaky gut, as the name suggests, the gut's leaking. So those tight junctions have now failed, and between these cells, you're now getting food. You're getting food particles in there, and it's getting taken up into the bloodstream right away before it's properly broken down all the way. And then, because it's in a more whole form, that's when you're going to get your allergies triggered, especially if this starts happening. So this is going to happen from an intolerance to something. So here's a nice little flow chart too. So let's say you have a gluten intolerance. Okay, that's going to start to lead to gut dysbiosis. What the heck is dysbiosis? That means that the normal bacteria that you have in your gut starts to alter. And when that starts to alter, that just throws everything off. You need to have this normal bacteria in your gut to help break things down, to help keep you regular, to help do a lot of different things within the body. So that starts to change. Either starts dying off or you get some different bacteria in there that starts causing a problem. And that's going to cause that leaky gut. That's going to get those tight junctions to break apart. The cells start to break apart and food gets through there. So food doesn't get broken down. You have holes in the intestinal wall. That's going to start to lead to an acquired allergy. So some allergies you're born with, other allergies you acquire through life. And that ultimately leads to tissue damage. So let's talk a little bit more about leaky gut. WebMD is another very good source for just medical journals, articles, and various opinions of the medical community. So in WebMD, they were talking to Dr. Donald Kirby. He is actually a gastroenterologist, and he is the director for the Center for Human Nutrition in Cleveland Clinic. So what did he have to say about the subject? So he says that physicians don't know enough about the gut, which is our biggest immune system organ. Leaky gut syndrome isn't a diagnosis taught in medical school. Instead, leaky gut really just means that you have a diagnosis that still has not been made. And you just have to hope that your doctor's a good enough Sherlock Holmes, but sometimes it's very hard to find a diagnosis. So they don't even necessarily, they acknowledge that it exists, but they don't acknowledge that it's a condition of itself. They're trying to say that there's something else going on that is causing it. And ultimately, he says, we know a lot, and we know that it exists, but in the absence of evidence, we don't know what it means or what therapies can directly address it. So they know it's there, but they don't know what to do for it. They have no idea. All right, so now you've gone through that whole stage, you've gone through the intolerance, you now have leaky gut, you're getting food into your system, and you've developed an allergy. So you have legitimate tissue damage within your GI, within your gut, and it leads to all kinds of different diseases and symptoms. So let's just go over a couple of the diseases that food allergies can actually cause. So anorexia. In this case, I'm not referring to anorexia nervosa, which is when people will stop eating because they have body image issues. This is anorexia, means you're just not eating, mostly because when you eat it hurts and you feel terrible when you eat. Anxiety, aortic vasculitis, so you actually start having heart problems and vascular problems. Rheumatoid arthritis, spontaneous abortion. Let's see, I have another page here. Anemia, ataxia, thyroiditis, actual swelling of your thyroid gland, bone pain, blurry vision. Let's see, I think I have another page. Here's a nice old list. You know what, as a matter of fact, let's keep going. And let's keep going. So we roughly did this in alphabetical order. We put in a few others that seemed key. But ultimately, to make this not a 5-hour presentation, we had to stop at the letter I, which isn't even halfway through the alphabet. So food allergies are a major, serious problem, and we definitely need to know what we're allergic to so we start avoiding these things. And so eventually we can start clearing up these allergies. Allergies are not forever. And Dr. Kellen will be speaking about this very shortly. So just because I was just talking about gluten, I just want to reiterate that historically and archaeologically, there's actually very strong evidence that says once gluten started being introduced into the diet, the amount of just chronic disease and chronic inflammation started to skyrocket. So that's my spiel on gluten. So that's going to be everything for me, guys. So I'm the doom and gloom segment of this. Now you're all feeling like you're never allowed to eat anything again. Fortunately, there is some light at the end of the tunnel, and that light is going to be Dr. Kellen. He's going to inform you now what to do about the allergies that have come about.